All right, Jeremy here, Parts Breakers, Jeeps Unlimited, 303-666-9020. Listing, well, not really listing, this is actually already sold, but just doing a final approval video as we do on everything. Main purpose, you probably heard us say it a million times if you watch these videos. We've been doing this for 18 years, so there's a lot of videos out there like this. But, our goal is to show you the frame or the tub or whatever the item is, so as if you're standing here next to me. A long time ago I realized that most of our sales in the future are going to come from the internet or come from phones, so let's get ahead of this thing. And that's just the way we started doing it a long time ago, and it seems to work. It seems to work so well that we've never had a frame or a tub come back for a reason of that. There's been one or two over the course of that time, not very many, but where people, we've sent out, one of my guys goofed up and sent, one guy a 4-cylinder and one guy a 6. That happened about 12 years ago, and I only bring that up because it was a royal pain in my ass and expensive. So, but other than that, for quality wise, people can see what they get. So I'm giving you kind of an overview of it as of right now, and then I'm going to get real close to it and show you. So a couple things on our frames. We scope them and we measure them. There's a couple ways we do the measurements. The first and foremost, it's the simplest way, is just putting on a level concrete pad, as you see here, and there's a margin of error on those. It's pretty easy on that point. We do also have a jig we set them in, and we do all this even if it was an unwrecked Jeep. And most of our Jeeps, I would say 98% of everything we buy comes in under its own power, or it's got a bad motor or something like that, but it's not wrecked. But even with that said, that's part of the reason we still measure, because especially 30, 40-year-old vehicle, it might look, complete as it sits, but it may have been in a fender bender at one time. And most fender benders aren't going to bend a frame, but nonetheless, it's just an added measure that we do on them. So, and an assurance that you have. On top of that, we scope our frames, and that's really just to make sure that there's nothing on the inside that we can't see. And then on the outside, it's pretty self-explanatory. You'll see that here in a second. We're okay. I mean, obviously, the more black paint we see is the better. And as you can see on this one's probably like an 80-90. So factory black paint is intact around that 80-90%, which is what we really want to see. I mean, if it's even 60, that's still fine. It's just a matter of, is what is showing, is it bare metal that's flashed over to a oxidized, browning, which is what bare metal does. That's okay. A little bit of surface scaling is okay on a very, I even try not to get into that too much. And it just really depends on if there was material loss. So I'll be pointing stuff out like that, or oxidation, or just good paint here in a few minutes. And those are just things to remember. So if we look at something and we're seeing, where layers of rust have come off, that's obviously not a great thing. There's some areas that are going to do that no matter what. For example, where the belly pan bolts up, you have metal on metal contact. It wasn't a great design they did on those. So usually we'll have a little bit of buildup, but what we notice on those is that typically any kind of buildup, and it usually comes off when we wash them, is more so the skid plate. But every once in a while, I just did one not too long ago where there were a couple pinholes, and that. So that frame sold. We'll do them at a little bit of a discount, and we rarely discount frames. So when people see, especially TJ frames, when they see them come up like that, they nab them pretty quick. So, and then if it's ever been modified, or there's another frame I'll be listing here in a few minutes after this one, that we pulled, and it passed, it was scoped, it cleaned, it passed straightness, but it failed our walk around. And where it failed was not something real, volatile, whatever you want to call it. Sorry guys, I just got out of my fire department academy today, so I have a couple of the fire words on the top of my brain. But anyway, point is that it's not something that's going to be real hard to get around. But for example, and this one is fine, but on the one that I was talking about, the holes up here, you could tell the shocks hadn't been tightened, or possibly the little donuts that go on each side were gone on the frame. And so it allowed him to move, and over time it wallowed out the top of the hole. Somebody went in before we got the Jeep and welded some big washers in there, and that's probably fine. I mean, it obviously worked because it was tight when we pulled, but so that kind of thing, you know, and we just notated at that point, just saying, hey, look, this is what you're going to be doing. And then the other two things were, and this does happen occasionally, even on clean frames, is there were two bolts that the body, or not, excuse me, not the body, but the skid plate into the frame, they have these big welded nutserts, basically is what they are, that hold those up, and those were starting to spin. So those will have to be messed with. Not super hard either. You can weld those in place in there, and then do what you want from that point on. And if you're doing any kind of aftermarket long arm or tummy tuck or anything like that for them, you're gonna have to do that anyway. So okay, so without further ado, let's go through this thing. We'll just start right here. This is the driver's side. I'm gonna go right to the top of these coil buckets, because this is usually where they trap the most moisture. If you get, you know, areas of salt, sand, stuff like that, this is usually, and if there's any kind of scaling or rust buildup, it's going to be in this area here. So there's no pinholes, there's no holes whatsoever, but there definitely is a little bit of layering on the top of these. Now you got to remember, there's two pieces here. There's the actual bracket, which is what we're seeing, and then the coil bucket. And when I flip it over here in a minute, we'll see the bottom. Usually when it's like this, and we'll see here in a second, the bottom is fine. It's just, again, because the design of these wasn't the greatest. Typically when we have them here, and this one's not too bad at all, you can actually still see most of the paint, a little bit of oxidation, but both sides are actually pretty, or this side is pretty clean on both sides. But typically when you get it like this, they're both like that. So probably on this one, it's just somebody didn't wash it completely when they would take it off-roading, and just mud sat up there, because that's kind of what, when we cleaned this one, it had a little bit of mud up there. So, and then usually this top piece here, again, even on clean frames, is pretty ugly. This one's actually in really good shape. The bolts, you can see they all pulled out, which these are notorious. This is also kind of a weird design they did, and these usually, even on clean frames, will break, and then we'll have to extract those little, and there is a can't remember what it's called, but there's a fix for those, T-bar something or the other. If you were to have that issue and you're wondering how to repair it, there's a little kit you can buy, or used to be able to buy, but it's pretty simple. And then you can see the body mount holes here. These are in perfect shape, nice and round, exactly what we see them. Sometimes in areas, again, you get something like this, you start looking at other places and you'll start going, okay, but these ones are absolutely beautiful. The back subframe, a little oxidation on here, but no layering through here. And then the back, and they're here. Now YJs, CJs are super common to go there and there, and they'll start getting a little bit. This one's got a little bit of surface on it, but not too bad. So if you're gonna be blasting the frame, that's awesome. I mean, you don't have to, but a Rust-Oleum product will neutralize that, but you still wanna, you know, some of this stuff I would probably still take, if nothing else, some Scotch-Brite, just get it down to bare metal best you can if you're gonna be painting it. But we used to sandblast. It was just, unfortunately, insurance to run it with the machine we had wasn't, you know, with, it just wasn't worth it for us. So we started outsourcing, which worked really well until we moved out of Denver. And then we kind of lost that resource as well. So, all right, rail looks awesome through here. Those are your side step holes there. That's something that will differentiate a little bit over even the 9702 frames, with the way these are. These are the hook style. So this is probably 2000, 2001. The real early ones had just a flat bracket up against them. The steps themselves are the exact same. So if you're running factory boards on your Jeep, I don't know if I have an example right now to show you what I mean by that, but and you happen to have the flat side, just point that out and we can send you the brackets or swap if yours are in good shape, which probably are not, because if your frame's rusty, those always rust out. But we can sell them to you, or you can swap us out the ones you have, and they'll look exactly the same under there. So again, nice perfect holes here. Okay, a little, again, right down to that bare metal area, a little oxidation, little spots. A lot of times what causes this stuff is probably the same thing that was starting to leach here. It's just brake fluid or fuels or whatever that's dumped from the engine compartment down. You're get it a little bit in this area, a little bit here. Again, nothing lost, no material loss there. Those all look really clean. Same thing up through there. And all the way up to the front. And occasionally, again, this one's in pretty good shape. We're at this sway bar. Look at this one, perfect. Absolutely beautiful. This one's a little oxidized. A lot of times that sway bar bushing sits here, again, traps sand in it, and it just acts as abrasions. There's a lot of times on TJ frames, they'll get real thin there. Not the end of the world, but just something nice to see. This one's not. And then lastly, as far as top goes, we have nice clean threads. Boom, 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 and boom, boom, boom. Now, again, they're not the end of the world, but I mean, these are, you can see, shiny. And it just makes it really nice to go back in, especially if you put it back together with some anti-seize or whatever you're using on it. All right, so coil buckets, those all look good. Yeah, let me flip it down. I see a little bit of oxidation on the inner there. That again is where that belly pan goes. This one had a pretty good amount of mud that was sitting up against that frame, up on top of that. So kind of common to see that when that happens. But yeah, so give me just a second. I unfortunately have to put the phone down. It's kind of a two-person job. Flip these over. They're not real heavy, but they're awkward enough. So see if I can even, maybe I can leave the phone up, right? Possibly. Oh. Okay. Not sure what you can see or not, but it's nice when they leave the frames over. Guys are supposed to put them on one side of the pad, the other makes it a little bit easier when I go to move them. List them, but some of those instructions fall short occasionally, so. All right, so bottom side should look just like the top, if not cleaner, sometimes cleaner. This one's got some scratches in it. This one had a bumper on it. I don't know really what this is. Looks like they maybe pried against that a little bit. Good threads, both front bumper, of course your gearbox mount, track bar mount there, that's in perfect shape. It's a huge chunk of iron, so. Coil spring brackets are excellent. Beautiful there, all the way up. But your lighting is gonna change a little bit with shadows, so apologize about that, but these are absolutely beautiful. All right, now here's that area. And this one's really nice. So you can see a little build up here. This is actually from the skid. And we get most of it off when we do it. You can feel a little bit of thin in here, but not too bad. So there's not much you can do for this. I mean, you could go in and reinforce if you wanted to. It's really not needed. The biggest thing is just making sure that you got good bolts. They're not broken off. These are nice and clean. Good threads in there. And then when you go to put this belly pan back on there, you know, people always ask, should I put a gasket in here? No, it doesn't really help, and it just will tear itself. So unfortunately, it's just the way it is, metal on metal. There's some other skid plates out there that do a little bit better job of it. So, okay, same thing, you got it here. Nice there, nice threads there, little oxidase there. Okay, these are all beautiful. This is a really common area to see rust. You can see nice factory paint all through here. The back end of these frames, a lot of times, especially Midwest Jeeps, for whatever reason, this is where they get real bad. So good to see that. And that's absolutely beautiful under there. A little bit of bubble in there, but not too bad. All the way around. And that's like nice clean paint under there still. So that's kind of what I was talking about. That subframe bar, whatever you want to call it, above the gas tank skid, that's beautiful. This one's got a little bit of surface around these shock mounts, but nothing lost, nothing bad there. Here's a better shot of this area here. Okay, get some paint on it, but there's no holes, no cracking, no thinning. All right, and then this back piece is beautiful. There's nothing on that. So, I mean, obviously, if you're going to be painting this thing, you're probably going to be painting the whole thing. But you wouldn't have to. I mean, I don't think people they understand sometimes when I tell them, especially with the phone. Once they get it, they do. But the quality, when you still have almost all the factory black paint still intact on these things, and TJs are getting so difficult to get frames on right now. We got 3 or 4 people in line for the next, unfortunately, we're at the moment. So other than that one, it's got a couple blemishes on it, which I'll put up here shortly. And yeah, that's it. Okay, so questions, comments, concerns. If you're looking for a frame, want to get put on the list, give us a holler. Cut my finger when I flip this thing. Anyway, 303-666-9020, partsbreakers.com. And like I said, this one, as long as we get the approval, is spoken for, along with the tub, which I did deliveries. They did a lot of it. They didn't finish the flares. I'm not exactly sure what they got done, besides they did a lot of cleanup, but that was supposed to be a priority. So Monday morning, I'll have a talk with them and make sure that gets done. We can get that final video of that tub for you. Otherwise, yeah, I'll send this over to you as soon as it uploads today. Our internet's kind of slow out here, so it'll take a little bit. And then you get that. You give me the okay on the frame, we'll put it aside. We'll wait till the tub gets done. Once we get the okay on that, we'll arrange shipment. And usually frames, tubs, whether it be one or both, Midwest takes, once they get picked up, a couple days. And East Coast, Florida, those areas can take about a week, but not too long. So, all right, thanks a lot. Have a great day. Have a, I guess, blessed, a good rest of your weekend. Let's see, I always say the date on these, May 4th, 2024. So I always reference that because people call 10 years down the road and ask me about a frame. I'm like, oh, let me see what, oh yeah, we haven't had that one in a long time. So, all right, thanks a lot, and yeah, talk to you later.